Okay, now I'm going to move on to his beard, and I thought about how I'm going to draw his beard, and because he has these really short white hairs for his beard, so they're not soft, and so if someone has a longer beard, I would draw it with the eraser, just like I will draw his hair, because you can erase those strokes. But these, for his beard, these are really small, thin, white strokes. I'm not sure if I will be able to create that texture with the eraser because it's not thin enough. So I'm going to try the embossing technique. And the embossing technique is you just emboss all of these small strokes, and then after, when you go over the graphite, those strokes will show up because the graphite won't be able to go in that part of the paper because you indented the paper. I have an embossing tool, but this is something I already had, but you can also use a mechanical pencil. So if you have a mechanical pencil, you can use the side of that metal tip, or you can use an embossing tool if you have it. But I would advise you to practice this on another piece of paper first before you continue working on your drawing. So just take another piece of paper. I would use the same paper you're using for your drawing, so you can see how it looks. So what you're going to do is look at the reference photo and look at all of the white parts where you see that, and then just start drawing that. If you're having a hard time seeing your own strokes, you can take a flashlight. I just turned on the flashlight from my phone, and you can put it on the side, and that way you can easily see the strokes that you're putting down, because these will be really light because now you're indenting the paper. So I'm just looking back and forth at my reference photo and seeing where I see all of those small white hairs, and there will be a lot, and try to draw them a bit messy, different directions. You do see that these are going more to the front, these will be this way, and these are going a bit this way. So this way, and this way. And then some just another direction, so a bit messy, not all of these straight lines. So try to practice this on another piece of paper. You can just draw all of these random small strokes, and then use your graphite pencil, what I'm going to show in the next step, and then just shade over it, and then you will see those white strokes becoming visible. The more often you practice this, you can become better. So it is a great technique, but it can be tricky at first. So keep that in mind and practice it before you try the technique on your drawing. So just like drawing hair, this will take a lot of time, and take your time when you do this. And remember, it's better to draw them a bit more messy than all of them straight together. The more messy, the more realistic. And I see some white hairs here in his mustache, and they're also really thin and pointy, so I'm also going to use this. And you see the white in his hair, it's softer and thicker, those hair strokes, so I'm just going to use the eraser for that. So here under his nose I see a lot of those white hairs, and they are a bit longer than the ones on his beard. Here are some short ones. Now with the flashlight, I'm just checking to see if I have it all where I want it. Okay, I think I'm good. Now with the 4B, I'm going to start. If you look closely, you see that here in the front it's darker shadow than some other parts. So you will add some more graphite to some parts, but we're going to just go layer by layer. I'm also holding my pencil a bit more to the back, so I'm shading with the side of my pencil lead. And then all of those strokes will show up because you indented the paper. You can change the the direction you're shading. And here those white hairs will also show up. This part is lighter. And then here you see his skin. But it's also a bit darker, so I'm just shading over that part as well. And I'm shading with light pressure. And you hear that? If I shade here, it's really soft, but then here you go over that those indented lines. And you see that it will all look flat with the first graphite layer. But then we will also need to go darker and add values to make it look better. I'm going to shade this whole part so I can blend it at once. Okay, so with the tissue, blend this first layer. Now again with the 4B, I'm going to darken this part here for his skin. So now I'm switching to the 6B. And going to add some darker value to his mustache here. Here it's lighter, and then here in the middle it's darker. So here it's really dark, and then I see a kind of like a curved line here, and then shadow or skin. And this part is a lot darker. I still use light pressure with every layer. And I see that here are some more whiter hairs. I can try to erase that. So you see dark hairs here as well. And then these white hairs. And then his skin. And his chin here. It's also darker in shadow. I think I'm going to use the black for those darkest hairs and shadow under his nose. I'm going to use the blending stump. I think this part is a bit darker, so I'm going over it here as well. So for the beard, just like drawing hair, still with the 8B, I'm going to go over these darker parts. Just like drawing hair, you will need to go layer by layer. You see that his mustache has longer hairs. Then here, his skin here is really dark. And then here in between. So if you're going to be drawing hair, the whites also have some different value. So here the white is a bit brighter than the lighter hairs here. So if you look at his mustache, you see those white strokes. The top part, it's a bit gray because it's in shadow. So you know what I mean? I'm trying to recreate that part so that you don't just have these white strokes here, but also different value. Remember, highlight also has different value. So I'm trying to get in that graphite and make those strokes a bit darker at the beginning. Maybe with the 2B it has a thinner point. Let's see. Yeah, that's better. So then I can also go over some of these to make them a bit thinner. So that's great. You can use one of the lighter graphite pencils and then go over some of them so they're not too bright and all of them. So you don't want to just see all of these random white hair strokes. So I'm going over some of them. Okay, with the blending stump, I might go over I'm just going to continue and also go work on his cheek, and then for the final details, just like his forehead and texture, I can always continue. And here I also see, so under his mouth is also a shadow, and his mouth is sticking out a bit. So these hairs, also some of them, they're all not just the same value. See, some are wider than the others. Some hairs are more to the back. And also, if someone has a white beard, they're not all just the same value of white hairs. Some hairs are whiter than the other. Some have a gray tint or a darker gray tint. So that's what I mean, that you don't want to have all of these white hairs the same value. So I might go over some of these as well, because some of them are gray. I think I will need to add another layer to his upper lip. So at first it looked dark enough, but now when we added the beard and the mustache, it's not dark enough. So not too dark. So I have the 4B now. Add a light layer. Some texture lines. And with the black pencil now I'm going to go over those darkest parts for his beard. And here in between those white hairs is also darker. So that this will create that contrast in his beard. I see now that I have to add some white hairs. So I might use the white acrylic marker for that. And blend this. I lost his upper lip there. So with the 4B, to be sure, I don't want to darken it too much, and I also don't want to see an outline. And then here I'm going to go over some parts where I didn't indent the paper. So I'm creating a bit more of those bright white hairs on his mustache. You see that you can use the acrylic marker for that. So I'm just looking at my reference photos, see where I see all of those small white hairs. And you see that they're not all bright. So I'm going to go, once the paint is dry, I'm going to go over some of them. And then here it's there's a lot of white hairs. So this is great when you forget, but because it's difficult to, because when you're using the embossing tool or the mechanical pencil to indent your paper, it's not easy to see all of those strokes, and it's not easy to see how it will turn out. You will not know that. You will know once you start the shading, and then you might have too much or not enough. So if you don't have enough like I had, then you can just use the acrylic marker to add some more. And if you might have indented too much strokes, you can try to use a graphite pencil with a sharp tip and try to go over that stroke with the graphite. So I'm going to wait for my paint to dry. And then these ones under his nose, because he has a shadow, cast shadow, the white hairs are a bit gray. So now I'm going to make them less white and some of them less thick. And I go over the, the root of the hair, that's the part that's sticking out of the skin. So you don't want to see a line, but that it looks like a small hair stroke. So I go over the part that's growing out of the skin. If you go over that part, it will look like it belongs to the skin. And you won't have all of these random white lines. This is the 4B, and darken and carefully adding some darker value. And I see that there are some darker hairs here, so with the black pencil draw those. in this a bit. And on this side, continue to go over some of those white, or actually with the black pencil again, darken this part. You see that this part here is a bit darker than on this side because of the shadow. You can also see that this part of his face is just a bit darker. Okay, so with the 2B again, going over some of the white hair strokes. Here I also see some small black hairs. So with the black pencil, with the black pencil again. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this tutorial, and if you have to darken somewhere you can do that, but if the proportions weren't correct with the sketch and you finished all of the shading, it won't be easy to correct that. So if that's the case, if you look back now and you see that maybe the nose is a bit too far to the right, I don't know, that won't be easy to correct now. So then you will need to leave it like that and then take with you for one of the next drawings as a learning point. So that's why I always say critique your drawing before you start the shading, but it isn't easy because sometimes you just miss something. So then you will need to take it with you as a learning point. And like I always say, and it's so true, that with every drawing you create you learn something new, and maybe this technique was also new for you. So I'm curious how it turned out for you.